Relax and you will manifest everything you want, rewritten and enhanced. What if everything you've been chasing is actually waiting for you to stop running and start receiving? Why do some people manifest joy, success, and clarity effortlessly, while others feel stuck no matter how hard they try? Could ancient Stoic wisdom hold the secret to unlocking a life of peace, progress, and purposeful flow? Life has a strange way of teaching us lessons. The more we try to control every little detail, the outcomes, the timing, the way people respond, the more frustrated and exhausted we become. We plan our lives down to the smallest steps, thinking that if we just try harder, push more, and never let go, things will finally fall into place. But what if I told you that the opposite is true? That the moment you stop forcing, stop grasping, and start trusting, everything begins to flow effortlessly. It's not about giving up. It's about understanding where your power truly lies. The Stoics mastered this way of thinking. Centuries ago, Marcus Aurelius once wrote about the importance of accepting what comes naturally and not wasting energy, fighting against reality. He understood that struggling against things beyond our control only leads to suffering. The real battle is always within training, the mind to focus on what can be shaped and letting go of the rest. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. The mindset shift that can transform the way you approach success, relationships, and even your own peace of mind. Because if you're constantly stressed, feeling like no matter what you do, things just don't seem to go your way, there's a reason for that. You might be holding on too tightly to things that aren't meant to be controlled in the first place. This video isn't just another self-improvement talk. This is about something deeper: how to live with true confidence, to move through life with a sense of calm and certainty instead of anxiety and frustration. And trust me, if you watch until the end, you'll walk away with a completely different perspective on how to get what you want in life without chasing it desperately. Before we get into it, there's a simple free favor I'll ask you if you appreciate what we're doing here. Hit the subscribe button. It takes less than a second, but it helps bring this content to more people who need it. Let's dive in. We spend so much of our lives obsessing over results, waiting for that job offer, hoping that relationship works out, stressing over whether our efforts will pay off. We tell ourselves that if we just work a little harder, push a little more, we can force things to go our way. But what happens? The more we cling to a specific outcome, the more anxious we become. The process stops feeling fulfilling, and our happiness becomes entirely dependent on something we can't fully control. And that's where we trap ourselves. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus taught that we suffer not because of what happens, but because of our attachment to what we want to happen. He said, do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to, rather wish that what happens happens as it should, and you will be happy. In other words, instead of tying your happiness to a specific outcome, focus on the process. Focus on what you can control: your actions, your discipline, your mindset, and let go of everything else. Think about an artist painting a masterpiece. If they're obsessed with making every brush stroke perfect, worrying about how others will judge their work, they'll never get into a creative flow. But when they detach from the final result and simply focus on the act of painting, something incredible happens. They become fully immersed in the moment. The work becomes effortless, and ironically, that's when they create their best art. The same principle applies to everything in life: work, relationships, personal growth when you stop fixating on how things must turn out. You give yourself the freedom to enjoy the journey. This is especially true in relationships. Have you ever seen someone try too hard to impress another person? Their energy feels needy, desperate, almost forced, and what happens? It pushes people away. But when someone is confident, at ease with themselves, and not obsessed with a particular outcome, they naturally attract others. Why? Because they're not controlled by fear. They trust that whatever is meant to happen will happen. That's the power of detachment. Now let's talk about success. So many people believe that if they don't achieve a specific goal by a certain time, they failed. They treat life like a rigid checklist: graduate by this age, make this much money, get married, achieve this level of success. And if things don't go according to plan, they spiral into self-doubt. But here's the thing: success isn't a straight path. It's full of twists, setbacks, and unexpected opportunities. If you're too attached to one outcome, you might miss an even better one that life is trying to bring your way. Take a moment and ask yourself, what am I holding onto too tightly? What goal, expectation, or outcome is causing me stress? Now imagine what would happen if you release that grip, not giving up, but trusting that whatever happens, you'll be okay. That's detachment. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing things to go a certain way to feel at peace. So how do you practice this in real life? First, remind yourself daily that outcomes are beyond your control. All you can control is your effort, your discipline, and your mindset. Second, reframe your thinking. Instead of "I need this to happen," shift to "I trust that whatever happens will be for my growth," and finally focus on the present moment. The more you immerse yourself in now, the less power the future has over you. Life throws challenges at us constantly. Some days, everything flows effortlessly, and other days it feels like the world is working against you. The difference between people who crumble under pressure and those who thrive isn't luck, it's mindset. The way you think shapes how you experience life. And if you don't learn to master your mind will master you. You can't always control what happens around you. The economy, other people's actions, unexpected obstacles, but you can control how you respond. That's where real power lies, when you shift your mindset from reacting to responding. Everything changes. Psychologist William James, often called the father of modern psychology, once said the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. This is exactly what the Stoics taught. You don't have to believe every thought that enters your mind. You don't have to let every difficult moment define you. Instead, you can train yourself to reframe situations, to step back and see them from a new perspective. Here's another example. Imagine you're going through a tough time at work. You keep making mistakes, your boss is breathing down your neck, and you feel like you're failing. One way to approach this is to think, "I'm terrible at this. I'll never get better. Maybe I'm just not good enough." That's a fixed mindset, and it traps you in self-doubt. But what if you change that thought? What if instead you said, "I'm learning. Every mistake is teaching me something. The pressure I'm feeling is helping me grow." That's a growth mindset, and it allows you to turn struggles into opportunities. The Stoics believe that every challenge is an opportunity to practice virtue, patience, resilience. Wisdom Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." That means every struggle, every setback, every moment of frustration is actually training you to be stronger. Think of it like lifting weights. If you never push yourself, you never build strength. The same is true for your mind, but let's be honest. Mastering your mindset isn't something that happens overnight. It takes daily practice. One simple way to start? Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Are you constantly feeding yourself thoughts of fear, doubt, and negativity? Or are you training yourself to see opportunities, to reframe situations, to stay calm in the face of uncertainty? Your mind is like a garden. What you plant is what grows. If you plant seeds of fear and anxiety, that's what will take over. But if you plant seeds of strength, clarity, and resilience, those will grow instead. Another way to strengthen your mindset: train yourself to stay in the present. So much stress comes from obsessing over the past or worrying about the future. But the only thing you can ever control is this moment right now. The next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself, what can I do right now that will move me forward? That one question can snap you out of panic and bring you back to what matters. Patience is one of the hardest things to practice, especially when you're working towards something important. You've put in the effort, done everything right, and yet nothing seems to be happening. It's frustrating, isn't it? The world tells us that success should come quickly, that if we're not seeing instant results, we must be doing something wrong. But the truth is, life doesn't operate on our schedule. It moves according to its own rhythm, and trying to rush the process often leads to disappointment. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." Think about that. Anything truly valuable, wisdom, strength, success, takes time to develop. Just like you can't force a tree to grow faster by pulling on its branches, you can't force life to give you what you want before the time is right. There is an order to things, and when you learn to trust that timing, you free yourself from so much unnecessary stress. Imagine a young artist who dreams of making a name for themselves. They work tirelessly, pouring their heart into their craft, but they're not seeing the recognition they want. At this point, they have two choices. They can either become frustrated, lose faith, and give up, or they can trust that every brush stroke, every piece of work is preparing them for something greater, even if they can't see it yet. Those who trust the process keep going, and eventually they find themselves exactly where they're meant to be. We live in a culture of instant gratification, fast food, fast information, fast success. We've been conditioned to believe that if something doesn't happen quickly, it's not worth waiting for. But some things must take time. Relationships, personal growth, mastering a skill, all of these require patience. Socrates once said, to do is to be. This means that growth is in the process, not just the outcome. If you're always focused on when something will happen, you miss out on who you are becoming along the way. But here's the tricky part: how do you stay patient when you feel like nothing is happening? The Stoics would say, focus on what's in your control. You can't control the timing, but you can control your actions. You can keep showing up, keep putting in the work, keep growing as a person, and most importantly, you can trust that if something is meant for you, it will come, not a second too early or too late. One of the greatest lessons Stoicism teaches is the power of acceptance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together. Instead of resisting life's timing, learn to embrace it if things aren't happening as fast as you want. Maybe it's because you're still in the process of becoming the person who is ready for them. Have you ever noticed that when you desperately chase something, it always seems to move further away, whether it's a job, a relationship, or even success? The more frantic and needy your energy, the more things seem to slip through your fingers. It's almost like the universe senses desperation and responds by pulling back. But when you act with purpose, with calm confidence, everything starts to align naturally. There's a powerful difference between chasing and attracting. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus once said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, before you act, be clear on why you're acting. Desperate action comes from fear, fear of missing out, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. But purposeful action comes from a place of clarity and strength. When you know who you are and what you stand for, your actions become more deliberate, more grounded. Let's take an example. Imagine two people searching for a job. The first person is desperate. They send out applications everywhere applying for jobs. They don't even want panicking over every rejection. Their energy is scattered, anxious, and uncertain. The second person, however, is focused. They know their strengths. They take time to craft meaningful applications, and they prepare without obsessing over immediate results. Who do you think is more likely to get hired? The one who is calm, confident, and strategic, not the one who is acting from fear. This applies to relationships too. If you enter a relationship out of desperation, fearing loneliness, seeking validation, it often leads to disappointment. But when you approach relationships with self-respect and confidence, you attract healthier, more fulfilling connections. People are drawn to those who are secure in themselves, not those who are grasping for attention. Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, a state of living with purpose and fulfillment. He believed that true happiness comes not from chasing external things, but from aligning your actions with your virtues and values. Act with wisdom, integrity, and purpose, and let the outcomes take care of themselves. When you move with intention rather than panic, you start making better decisions. You stop wasting time on things that don't align with your true goals. Think of a seasoned chess player versus a beginner. The beginner reacts impulsively, making moves out of fear and uncertainty. The expert, however, plays with patience, seeing the bigger picture, making deliberate choices. Life works the same way. If you're constantly reacting to fear, you'll make choices that lead to more chaos. But if you take a step back, act with clarity and trust, the process, you move closer to the life you actually want. So how do you shift from acting out of desperation to acting with purpose? First, get clear on your why. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly want it, or because I'm afraid of not having it? Second, slow down. Desperation rushes, purpose moves with patience. Instead of making decisions from a place of fear, give yourself time to reflect and choose wisely. And finally, trust yourself. You don't need to force things into place. When you act with confidence and alignment, opportunities naturally come your way. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." A lot of desperation comes from imagined fears. What if I don't succeed? What if I fail? But the truth is, you are stronger than you think, and you don't need to scramble for what's meant for you. Before you, then act with purpose, move with confidence, and watch how life starts to align in your favor. Have you ever felt exhausted from trying to control everything? You plan, you push, you strategize, but somehow life still doesn't unfold the way you expect? It's frustrating, isn't it? You try to make people act a certain way for circumstances into place and predict every possible outcome, only to find yourself feeling more stressed and less in control than ever. The harder you grip, the more things slip through your fingers. But here's the paradox. The moment you let go, life starts to work in your favor. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Think about that. True freedom doesn't come from controlling everything around you. It comes from letting go of the need to control. The more energy you spend trying to manage things that aren't yours, to manage other people's opinions, the future, the past, the more you drain yourself. But when you shift your focus to what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your responses, you reclaim your power. Take relationships, for example. Have you ever tried to change someone? Maybe you wanted a friend, a partner, or a family member to behave differently, to be more understanding, more supportive, more aligned with your expectations. But no matter how much you tried, they stayed the same. That's because people are not ours to control. We can communicate. We can set boundaries. We can choose who we allow in our lives. But we can't force someone to change. When you release that need, you free yourself from frustration and allow relationships to unfold naturally. The same applies to success. So many people believe that if they just push harder, they'll reach their goals faster. But there's a difference between effort and control. You should absolutely work toward your goals, but obsessing over every tiny detail, stressing about timing and fearing failure only creates resistance. Seneca once said, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." In other words, when you fight against the natural flow of life, you create unnecessary struggle. But when you trust the process and focus on what's in your power, things unfold with much greater ease. Imagine you're preparing for an important interview. You've done the research, you've practiced, and you're ready. But instead of trusting in your preparation, you start overthinking. What if they ask me a question I don't know? What if I mess up? What if I don't get the job? Now your energy is shifting from confidence to anxiety. You walk into the interview, nervous, tense, and second-guessing yourself. That need for control is actually making you perform worse. But if you take a deep breath, remind yourself that you've done the work and let go of the outcome, you walk in, relaxed, present, and much more likely to succeed. So how do you start letting go of control? First, recognize what is and isn't within your power. The Stoics believed in the dichotomy of control. There are things we can influence and things we can't. Wasting energy on the uncontrollable only leads to frustration. Second, practice acceptance. Life won't always go according to plan, but that doesn't mean it's going wrong. Sometimes detours lead to better destinations. And finally, build trust, not just in life, but in yourself. Trust that you can handle whatever comes, even if it's not what you expected. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to attract success, opportunities, and even happiness effortlessly? It's not that they have some secret advantage. It's their mindset. The way they think, the way they carry themselves, and the way they see the world creates a reality where abundance flows to them. Naturally, on the other hand, people who constantly focus on what they lack seem to struggle endlessly. No matter how hard they work, it's not about luck, it's about the energy you bring into your life. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. Epictetus said wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants true. Abundance isn't about hoarding money, collecting achievements, or endlessly chasing more. It's about realizing that you already have everything you need to live a fulfilled life. When you stop operating from a mindset of scarcity, believing you never have enough, you make room for more to come to you. Naturally, imagine two people walk into the same room. One is focused on everything they don't have. They compare themselves to others, feel like they're falling behind, and believe that success is always out of reach. Their energy is heavy. Their words are filled with doubt, and they unknowingly repel opportunities. The second person walks in with the belief that they have enough knowledge, enough skills, enough opportunities ahead of them. They engage confidently, build connections naturally, and end up walking away with new possibilities. The only difference: one person was living in scarcity, the other in abundance. And it's not just about money or success. It applies to relationships, happiness, and even time. If you believe there's never enough love, never enough time, never enough good people in the world, then your mind will always look for proof of that belief. But if you shift your focus, you'll start seeing opportunities everywhere. You'll recognize the kindness in others, the possibilities in each moment, and the blessings that already exist in your life. Psychologist William James once said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." If you constantly feel like you're missing something, your brain will focus on that lack. But if you train your mind to see abundance, if you practice gratitude, confidence, and trust in life, you start shifting your entire reality. It's not magic, it's perception. What you focus on grows. Think about a musician who approaches their career with a scarcity mindset. They constantly worry that there aren't enough opportunities, that the industry is too competitive, that they'll never make it. Every rejection feels like proof of their fears. Because of this, they play it safe, hesitate to take risks, and miss out on potential breakthroughs. Now imagine another musician who believes in abundance. They see every rejection as redirection, every challenge as an opportunity to improve. They take more risks, connect with more people, and eventually find success. Not because they were luckier, but because they embodied abundance instead of fear. So how do you start embodying abundance in your own life? First, start with gratitude instead of focusing on what's missing. Focus on what's already here. When you appreciate what you have, you attract more of it. Second, act as if you already have enough. Move through life with confidence, knowing that opportunities are everywhere. And finally, release attachment. Trust that what's meant for you will come, not through force, but through alignment with your actions and beliefs. Have you ever caught yourself obsessing over a goal, pushing harder and harder, only to feel like you're running in circles? You do everything right, follow every step, and yet the results don't show up as fast as you want them to. It's frustrating, isn't it? We've been taught that success is all about effort, about never stopping, never letting go. But here's what most people don't realize. There's a difference between aligned action and desperate action. And sometimes the real key to progress is knowing when to act and when to step back. The Stoics had a deep understanding of this. Seneca once said, "Effort and patience will achieve more than force and anxiety." We live in a culture that glorifies the grind. The idea that if you just work hard enough, things have to go your way. But real success isn't about blind effort. It's about taking the right steps, staying open to opportunity, and then allowing life to unfold. The problem with forcing things is that it creates resistance. It's like pulling at a knot. The harder you yank, the tighter it becomes. Imagine you're trying to fall asleep. You can't force yourself to sleep right. The more you try to sleep, the more restless you become. But the moment you relax, let go, and trust that sleep will come, it happens naturally. The same is true for success, relationships, and even personal growth. You have to take action. Yes, but you also have to trust the process. Think of a farmer planting seeds. They prepare the soil, plant the seeds, water them, and make sure they get enough sunlight. But after that, they don't dig up the seeds every day, demanding that they grow faster. They trust that in time the crops will flourish. If they tried to rush the process, they'd only damage what they planted. Life works the same way. You take action, you do your part, but then you have to trust that things will develop at their own pace. This applies to every aspect of life. Take relationships, for example. Have you ever met someone who tried too hard? Maybe they were overly eager, texting too much, always needing reassurance. Their energy felt heavy, almost desperate. But then there's the person who is calm, confident, who shows interest, but also gives space. They naturally attract others because they aren't forcing anything. That's what happens when you take aligned action and let go. You create space for things to flow instead of suffocating them. Or think about your career. Maybe you've been hustling, trying to force every opportunity, but nothing seems to be moving forward now. What if instead of panicking, you trusted that your work was enough? What if you focused on being excellent at what you do? Building meaningful connections and allowing the right doors to open when they're meant to. This doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you stop trying to control every outcome. You take smart, purposeful action and then trust that what's meant for you will come. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations wrote, "Do what you must and let what happens happen." This is the essence of aligned action. You focus on what's in your control, your efforts, your discipline, your mindset. But you don't obsess over the results, because the truth is, no matter how much you plan, no matter how hard you push, there will always be things outside your control. And the more you resist that truth, the more stressed and frustrated you become. So how do you actually practice this in your daily life? First, get clear on your goal and take the necessary steps. Prepare, train, learn, do your part. Second, let go of the need to control when and how the results show up. Accept the timing isn't always up to you. And third, trust in your own resilience. Even if things don't go exactly as you planned, you'll adapt, you'll grow, and you'll find new opportunities along the way. At the end of the day, life isn't about controlling every outcome. It's about mastering yourself. The moment you shift your focus from chasing to aligning, from forcing to flowing, everything starts to fall into place. The Stoics knew this truth centuries ago, and now it's yours to apply. So take a deep breath, trust the process, and remember, real power comes from within. If this video resonated with you, there's another one on the screen right now that will take you even deeper into Stoic wisdom. Click on it and keep learning. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a new insight. Thanks for being a part of Stoic Journal. I'll see you in the next one. This is exactly what the Stoics taught.